Not only is it important to be able to write code that refers to a certain cell or a range of cells or a row or a column, but it's also important to be able to write code that refers to sheets and to workbooks. A workbook, for example, can be referred to in usually one of three ways. You either refer to a workbook or a file by its given name, so exactly what it's called, or you refer to a workbook based on the order in which the workbooks were opened. So if a collection of files was open and you wanted to refer to the first file that was open, you'd refer to it as workbook 1. You can also refer to a workbook just as the active workbook, and that's the one that's visible and on top that you're looking and working with at the moment. It's the same with sheets. You can refer to a sheet by its exact name, or you can refer to a sheet by its position. Sheets 1 being the first sheet and sheet 2 being the second sheet. Or you can just refer to a sheet as the active sheet. Okay, let's have a look. First of all, I'm going to save this file and close this file. I'm going to go File in the ribbon and Save As and call it Chapter 3B. And make sure it's a macro-enabled workbook, otherwise I'll lose the code that's in that file, and save. So the file's saved. Now I'll go back and I'll go to File and I'll close it. What I'd like to do now is open up a new workbook, so I'll just go File and New and Create, and I want to save this file, so I'll go File, Save As, and save it as Chapter 4. And again, make sure that it's a macro-enabled workbook. And save. Alright. What I'd like to do now is create a new module in the Visual Basic Editor. So from the menu, I'll choose Insert Module. And then I'll go to View and bring up the Properties window so that I can name this module Mod Objects. And here we have mod objects, and I'll just close that. Now I'm going to go back to my code file so I can copy and paste the code, but again, if you want to write it in the name of practice, by all means do so. But I'm going down to this particular sub-procedure called object variable, and I'm going to copy this and I'm going to paste it into my Visual Basic Editor and bring up Excel. Okay. So the idea here is I have a sub-procedure called object variable, and this time I'm declaring my workbook as a workbook. So you can declare something as a workbook or as a worksheet. Then I'm setting my workbook to being the active workbook, and what I'm then doing is my workbook sheets add after sheets count. So what it's going to do is going to count how many sheets are in here, and just looking down here there's 3 of them. So it's going to add a sheet after sheet 3. So it'll be the 4th sheet. Then it's going to name that active sheet because it will be selected. It'll name that 4th sheet I'm new. And then it's going to close this chapter 4 file and it's going to save it without asking me any questions. So let's try this. So if I was to go F8, I'll go F8. I'm declaring and setting my workbook as active workbook. I'm adding a sheet, and there it is there, sheet 4 after sheet 3, because the sheets count. When I rest on that, there are 4 sheets now, but originally there would have been 3 sheets and would have added after sheet 3. Now when I press F8 again, it's going to name that sheet 4 I'm new, and I can see it's just done it now. And now when I go F8, it's going to close the file and just save it. So technically if I go back to File and to Recent and I open up chapter 4, it saved that file because there's the 4th sheet that was added and called I'm new. So that's how you can do that. Now what I want to do is right click I'm new and delete this sheet and delete. And I'm wanting to run this code again, but I want you to change this code to use a when statement or a with end statement. So what I might do is I'll select this code here, copy it, paste it below, but I'll have to give it a different name. So I'll call it object variable 2. And to implement a when statement, I would simply press enter after this statement and say with and then I'm going to press delete until my workbook comes up here. With my workbook, now I'll go across here, and in front of the full stop I'll press enter. With my workbook, do that, take out this bit, keep the full stop, do that, take out this bit, do that, and then I'll put end with. And I might actually backspace these so they're not indented. The indenting makes it really easy to read things. Okay, so with my workbook, do that, do that, do that, end with. And now just check it actually works. So if I go F8, I've added my fourth sheet, I've named it I'm new, and I've closed the file and saved. And if I go back to File and back to Recent and back to Chapter 4, I can see it's taken my code. So a with and an end with is very handy when you don't want to keep saying my workbook, my workbook, my workbook and sound like you're repeating yourself. Alright, what I'd like to do now is to copy and paste another sub-procedure called Excel Objects. So I'm just going to dive off to the code file yet again. But again, if you want to type this so you get the practice, by all means do so. But I'm basically after this sub-procedure here called Excel Objects, which I'm going to copy and paste into my Visual Basic Editor. Alright, and bring up Excel. So this particular sub-procedure is going to, first of all, if I press F8, bring up a message box. Message box. Number of workbooks open are. It's going to count how many workbooks I've got open, and I've got one file open called Chapter 4. So when I press F8, it says the number of workbooks open are 1. So in early examples we went rows count, columns count. Now we're doing workbooks count, when you need to determine how many there are. And okay. Now with the active workbook, so here's another with and end with or when statement. When I go F8, message box, the workbook name is, and it's going to grab the active workbook's name, which is chapter 4.xlsm. And I'll go OK. If I press F8, its full name is the path and chapter 4. So I'll go OK. This is going to count how many sheets there are in this file. The number of sheets in this file are, drum roll, 4. And enter. This is going to select the fourth sheet because it's counted how many there are, and that could be variable, and it's going to select sheet 4. I'm new. It's then going to name it summary, which it's just done now, and then it's going to delete the first sheet. So now I'm referring to a sheet not by its name but by its position, and it's position 1, whereas this sheet was the last one. F8. And it's asking me to confirm that, so I go delete. Now it's going to add a sheet before the first sheet, which happens to be sheet 2. So this is by position again. So F8, and it's added a new sheet in. It's going to name it trial balance, and it has. It's going to go to A1. It's going to put the value trial balance in A1. It's going to go to the second sheet. It's going to name that one balance sheet. And it's going to go to A1, and it's going to type balance sheet in there as well. Then it's going to go to A1 and type summary. Okay, don't look too closely at the logic, and end with and end sub. Okay, so when it comes to actually deleting a sheet, you can delete a sheet by its position, the first sheet, or I could say, look, delete the sheet trial balance by its name. Or I could just say sheets delete, which would be the active sheet. So there's a variety of ways you can refer to it by position, by name, or by active sheet. And you can name sheets, such as we did here. You can count how many sheets there are and determine which is the last sheet and select it. So there are various ways that you can refer to files and refer to sheets. And so I'd like you to give the exercise a go.